I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to this series on GCR, the Big Lie. And we're going to go start just by going into exactly what is meant by the title, and as we go through this, actually, I'm trying to be more clear as we go, because it's a very confusing subject in the first place, because the GCR in itself is very confusing. And to know that it is what a lot of people in the world and throughout the world have been focused on is not as it was made out to them. And these are good people doing good things with great plans for the future, but it ends up where they're not on the right side of things, and I try to make sure that I'm going to be doing what I think is right, and that's why I made these series, to kind of like wake up people to what's going on. So first of all, what is the GCR? Global Currency Reset, and another part of it is the RV, the revaluation. So revaluing what? Currencies, and specifically Iraqi dinar. I mean, taking something that has a value here and revaluing it to up here. So that if you bought it down here and it gets revalued and it's now so much more valuable, you buy it for pennies and it's now worth dollars, it's a very big fold increase. So millions of people have purchased currencies, and they're waiting for the revaluation. Why? Because everybody is being told that this is how things are going to go, due to the fact that the world economy is crashing. Now, things have been changing along this way, but when you have a fiat-based system, it's designed to literally cannibalize itself. Basically, it's first designed to remove wealth from the bottom and move it to the top. There is a tax that is basically used to remove money to pay an interest on the money that's created. So that if you borrow $1 and you have no money, but you borrow the $1. And after a year, you owe 7 cents on that. You need $1.07. Where does the 7 cents come from to pay the $1.07? So you borrow it. Now you're at $1.07. Now you're owing $1.07, right? Because the dollar is out in the economy moving around. So you borrow it. Then you move to the next year, and now you're up to $1.25. You keep moving on, and the amounts get bigger, because now you're not borrowing $1, you're borrowing $10, $100, $1 million, $1 billion, and $1 trillion. And this is where we're at now. The new budget proposed that's come out now is almost $5 trillion budget. Now, where does the money come from? Tank, do you know?
I do, but give me 1 second.
Put you on the spot there. So that money is borrowed again and again and again. But at a certain point, that the value has lost it. Even if they print trillions more, it just devalues everything. So now, like in Zimbabwe, they had to print $100 trillion on one piece of paper to go ahead and buy a loaf of bread, whatever it was worth, but it was very low value. So you needed a bunch of these to go out to dinner. So they're just pieces of papers with numbers on them. But so it's an illusion that we all buy into, and the whole system of stocks on the stock market is also something, because we're using this illusionary paper to buy stocks in these companies, which are all running on this illusionary paper. So is there really things in these companies? Of course, they're building technologies, they're building, whatever clothes, normal things that we're using a day. So that part's not really illusion, but the financial side of this is an illusion. And when it's designed to keep moving all of the money up because they keep taking all the money from the people to pay the interest. Eventually they can't take enough from the bottom. They move it up, and that cannibalizes the system. So they know that this is going on, and it's collapsing. It was supposed to collapse under Hillary Clinton, but Trump upset the game. And if they collapsed the stock market at that time, Trump wouldn't support a bailout. So all the people in those companies are, well, whoa, don't collapse the economy yet. And of course, now Trump doesn't want to collapse the economy. He wants to basically transition it to an asset-backed currency. And that is our choice at this time. This is about ending the slavery system and literally choosing not to be slaves anymore. And is why Tank and people at Manna, World Holding Trust, were upset with Trump saying, oh, well, we're going to give them 2 more weeks to enslave us. And then after that, we're going to go off and find our own way. So this is the GCR. This is the collapse of the economy, the institution of a new economy that was going to be 100% cryptocurrency, where there is no asset. Even if they started with an asset-backed currency, they'd eventually turn off the gold backing and everyone would be floating on air again. So continuing the same thing that they've always done. But they always needed traumatic events in the world to cover up the deed of the collapse of this Ponzi fiat system. So now we're in this game of okay, I'm going to be revaluing these currencies in the GCR. So I'm waiting in line to get my money. And then when I get that money, I'm going to go out and do some fantastic things. And so it's been a big waiting game, or as Tank was going, it's the tomorrow game. So it's tomorrow. Sometimes it is today, but on that day, it becomes tomorrow or next week. And they push it out. And so there's been this pattern in the last 3 years we can follow. And, and it always came down to who's behind the screen, who's behind the curtain that's there pulling the shots. Because I know that all the people I'm dealing with in the GCR were good people. There wasn't the sinister guy that says, I'm only in it for the money, right? And I'm going to take this and set up my own empire, right? These were all good people with good plans to do good things. And it has to happen. It has to happen. And so they're all expecting it and waiting for it to occur. But now it's in a position where it hasn't occurred, and why hasn't it? Even though they needed it to happen, it did not happen. Now, I think that's a factor of Trump, trying to give us a softer landing, because when this collapsed, we were meant to just hit rock bottom, famine, disease, death, and he's changed it to where there's a softer landing, but there has to transition. But there's going to be turmoil when this happens. But now to find out that the Manna World Holding Trust has been funding the government for the last year, and has funded the government so far this year, and has done downloads of cash into large banks to keep them going. Actually, Tank, what was the purpose for these in general, to Citibank and Bank of America and Wells Fargo? Why was it put into there, like the $380 billion? Was for humanitarian, or was it keep them afloat?
Oh no, not to keep them afloat. Exactly. There's $375 billion that was brought in specifically allocated for project funding. That's what that money in particular was brought in for.
Okay.
Now,
but
the reason being
does
is
it
for the
help them
sale
stay
of
afloat?
things.
Say again.
No, that money's not for them to use. No, they're not allowed to use that money at all. Matter of fact,
Okay.
the way it's set up is that money's been. I don't want to disrupt your flow. When you're done, I'll chime I'll chime in. When you're explaining it beautifully, by the way, I'm listening very attentively.
I lost.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm here, man. No, I'm paying attention very attentively. I don't want to disrupt your flow, so please continue.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, all right. So, these funds are now were loaded into the Treasury Department and were used to keep everything going. So, although, I'm looking from the outside and I'm hearing things in the GCR, I'm seeing a correlation between what, Thomas Williams is who I was following as a list, just listening. And, they downloaded funds to the government. Okay. Well, that seems like when they received funds and they were able to do things. And there was a flurries of activity and people. So, being able to ask certain people, if this was true, if this has happened, and it turns out that it did. At least, 2 of the 3 times I had confirmation that happened. It's like, okay, well, there's something here, and then so I'm waking up to saying, listen, I already suspected that there was something. There may be, the sinister guy behind the curtain, really the evil plot. Though everyone I'm dealing with is not that sinister guy. But so there wasn't an evil plan. And now it's more revealed from the information of what was coming on through Thomas Williams, and now my conversations with Tank about what was going on when those things happened. And, also having confirmation of Kim's name being on the trust. So, this is how do you prove this when you have the system that's set up to be run by the Rothschilds, to be run for a particular group to control things, and now they no longer have the control. They have control at a certain level by reputation, right? These were always the ones that were giving the rules and how to do things, and people just follow. But when things such as people don't get paid, and they've had enough Iraqi dinar as payment or Zimbabwe currencies as payment, they say, well, how about getting us the cash now? Right? This starts, teetering, and at a certain point, they will lose complete control of the situation. And the question is, are we there yet, Tank?
So that's really it's a good question, because what's amazing to me is that we haven't already been there. To be quite honest, if you examine the situation, what's happening, Kim has this. Part of the reason why this has taken so long is because this is the reality behind draining the swamp, right? So you got to think now, if the swamp touches everything and everyone, right? The swamp is not just, just the bad guys, right? Because the bad guys, they're attached to everyone, right? They're your employers. They're your, you know, they're not, in a lot of cases, they're guys that are just compromised in one thing, right? They're compromised on one thing, and they owe a debt. They owe a favor, right? And when they're called on for it, they could have had a whole lifetime where they never had to remember that. But when they're called on, they don't want that now they've built up a reputation, and they've done all these things, and you know when they're called on to do something, if they don't do it, they'll be exposed. And people spend a whole lifetime building up a very, they make one mistake when they're younger, and then spend the whole rest of their life being solid people, and then they're just held hostage, and you never know. That's part of the these secret societies. You never know when they're going to call that in on you. So that's the one thing that's much deeper than the money itself, believe it or not, even the assets, right? It's the favors, right? They're all like, right now, if it was about the money, we'd be done. Kim is complete. She's demonstrated to the entire world, everyone in the world at this point. I mean, of any um, relevance, anyone who is, actually in charge of a country, anyone who's actually in charge of a treasury, anyone who's in charge of a bank, or he's like a truly reputable, uh, not, and I don't mean in a good way, but truly diabolical. I don't know, corporation. They're all aware of Kim. Now, they have done a good job of trying to keep her out of sight. They've really tried to almost just deny her existence, right? And then all the factions, they've all tried to kind of step up and say, you know, I'm the one who's in charge now, right? They've all done this in different ways, and and they've been literally picked apart for a while there. It was, let's see, it was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were like the co-Pindar, right? They were both ruling, and they actually, I forget what, I think it was in September of 2017 was supposed to be like the big crossover, right? And they had some big ceremony down in Cuba, and there was some horrifying baby virgin sacrifice or something like that, and then they went to this, they went to open this big vault, right? And it was supposed to be thunder and lightning and magic and all these things, and nothing happened because they don't have access to the vaults, as we've established. So, but that's the kind of delusions they're under because they didn't know, So even at the top of the order right now, all of the real intelligence behind their planning and um, everything that they've been has been eliminated. So where we're at right now is that they're still under those same orders, so to speak, right? So they're still following through on the last given directions, right? And Dan, I love hearing you explain this. I mean, you're very, very clear and very kind too. It's very, like, it doesn't even sound nefarious hearing it from you. I mean, it's like, wow, like, yeah, either it was going to be, their way, which was to collapse the economy, or President Trump is just going to try to integrate it. But the collapse of the economy, it would have uh, quite literally actually been like the zombie apocalypse, right? They, and that's the thing. It's really
with,
hard.
with a literal disease that makes people crave flesh.
That
That
and
it wouldn't
that's
be
right.
undead, but close enough. That they would seem like zombies.
That is absolutely correct. And this is the thing that I really, Dan and I kind of we've talked about this a couple times. Gone back and forth about, like, easing people into it, and then there's like another approach, which is kind of like you gotta. It's almost like you have to shock people so that they pay attention, right? Because people are really, um, they're just kind of lulled to sleep, right? So, and I got to be honest, I don't know exactly which is the best way, to do that. So I feel like together, Dan and I balance that out because he's really good at easing in the facts, and hopefully I just kind of drop it and it lands somewhere. Um, but
You
but the
know,
reality is,
yeah,
that's what they're going to do.
just on the subjects that we touch on, right? That are much deeper, and they are shocking and horrible. And if you dive into it, you will be sickened. But and most people can't absorb that, right? It's just so far outside of what they know as reality that even the consideration of it is first, they have to deny it, and then they'll get angry about it, and then they'll want to try and resolve it. But we by slowly bringing out information in a way that kind of touches and tries to tie it all together. None of us are going to be completely perfect in understanding what's happened in our past in the history of things, because we also have the full Mandela effect going on. I've had two experiences of the Mandela effect. One on a very personal basis that I know is a completely different reality than I was living 5 years ago. It's so what is history and what has happened in the past is where did the mud flood first time I heard about mud flood just came up. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? Is this another Mandela effect, or is this just something that really was hidden from us? I looked into a couple of the videos about it, and my I can see how they're correlating some facts and things like that, and that's okay. But does it really affect us right now that there was a mud flood, or is it a distraction? A lot of
That's a
things.
great. That's a great point. It's kind of what I was saying when um, the the Q movement, right? Which we agree, like, has been great to get people involved and got people actively involved in kind of the puzzle of reality to kind of see how they do things. But all of a sudden, it seemed seemingly out of nowhere, they started talking about clones being real, and it was like, how did that fit in? And how does that help us right now, right? And how does that help any of these people that really are in a state where they need to take action because they are, you know, being poisoned as we speak, and the economy is being sabotaged, and the president that they've pinned all their hope on, you know what? He's been regular attempts to assassinate him. All those things are happening, and you have this constant direction of trust the plan and enjoy the show. But and and this is where if there is planners aside from um Kim and her team, I don't know who they are. And I certainly have had, you know, I still have very direct contacts in many of these different organizations, just like Dan said, who believe they're doing good work, right? And in some cases they are, but they're loyal to other people. I mean,
Right.
the entire white hat movement, all the white hats have been actively paid by the Chinese elders for a long time, and they're actively, everyone thinks they're masterminding this, the global currency reset, and this is how humans get liberated. But in reality, that is the pathway to implement, one of several different factions version of reality, right? They have the meritocracy, right, where the non-bloodline elite, get to decide who has merit, right, and what the standard for that is. And imagine, you know, uh, if it's like Einstein said something like, everybody's intelligent, but if you judged intelligence by of a fish by how well it could climb a tree, it would spend its entire life thinking it was an idiot, right? And so if you have a meritocracy system, it's like, well, who decides who has merit, right? And then
Well,
it,
on that, I know we discussed the meritocracy before, and I agree that that is the main issue is who decides who has merit. It's the same problem in socialism and communism. You end up with this group that can be benevolent or not, and if you get into a group that is not, you can end up that merit. What's merit is only all evil things. You get literally go, and they can string people along and follow some small breadcrumbs down that line to bring people to that place, which ultimately is where we have where we are in society is we're being brought down a trail. I used to, think on the left right side when I was very young in high school, and thinking about the politics, Democrat versus Republican. I was always on the Republican side, always thinking conservative. I say mainly I don't want government interfering, but I was all for business and going out and creating. So that's why I floated to that side.
of course,
But over time, I said there is no difference between the Republicans and Democrats. Not in practice. In the
right,
rhetoric, there was complete difference. But the way they governed, it was just the same road, but they pushed from one side or the other. But you ended up going down that same road. So as you keep going down that same road, you end up saying, "Well, what's the difference? I don't want to go down this road. They're both sending, so I can't vote for either side. Or if I vote for one side because it sounds better, am I really doing any benefit here? Because we're still going the wrong way." Now,
No, it's the choice between syphilis or herpes. I mean, at the end of the day, they're both going to hurt you, and that is the ultimate problem. Is by keeping the illusion going that we have, that our well, for the longest time, and I would say that this was really disrupted in practice and in reality when President Trump was elected, or when he went from Donald Trump to President Trump, because you can go back and see the video, and anyone watching that, you can see very clearly that everything about President Trump through the entire campaign was, he had so much swagger and just would just say whatever he wanted, because, and part of the reason why he did that is because he was not concerned about winning. He knew he wasn't going to win. He knew their plan, right? He knew that all along they had been working on the plan to have Hillary Clinton elected since 1994, all the way back then. And she was coming in, and there was just no question she was going to be the president. This was the big evil plan, and everything she did in her life leading up to that was for that. Every act of conspiracy and treason that she committed, the way the Clinton Foundation was embezzling billions of dollars from donations for Haiti. I mean, all of these things, she was prepared to be the next controller of the evil empire. And the way they cemented, they had never lost. That's why it's such a monumental victory, because at the end of the day, they had a master controller, and the master controller controlled all factors from both sides. So they're used to feeling like they're losing, and then they come out on top because the master controller was controlling both sides and they knew the ultimate outcome. So what completely disrupted the order was when Hillary Clinton did not win. And the only reason why is because the George Soros owned and designed, I guess, voting machines that were designed that no matter what vote you put in, Hillary was going to come out on top. When those went down during the election, when they were disabled and they were no longer able to record false data, that disrupted the whole system, because after that, the election was just, it was just real numbers after that. And that's why
well,
it went from being a landslide one way to an upset
you know,
victory.
I know that Trump did make some comment about his not believing that he would win, right? I got that, but I would say it was more out of, I think he really was trying to win. I think that he may have questioned whether he could win because of this. It's a rough campaign and it's rigged against him, but he just kept going forward, and to be in disbelief when it happens, right? Because it really happened. That would happen to just about anyone, right? That was going into it. So I think he really thought he could win. I think he thought he could win from the time that he was, first asked what on Oprah show when he was in his 30s, right?
Well, I think in his 30s, he definitely thought he could win. I just mean more that he knew there was very, very powerful forces that had planned that he wouldn't win, and he knew on some level, or at least he was aware that these things existed, right? I'm not saying he was involved in any way. I just mean that the guy's a connected, smart guy, right?
yeah.
He knows what's going. He knows the score. He wasn't like, if you told him today that there was fake voting machines, he wouldn't be like, what? Like, he wouldn't be shocked, right? Like, he knew that. So in this, he was pressing forward, and at some point, you know Kim did contact him, so I'm sure that he had you know this mysterious woman tell him things that he hoped was true, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to who puts up results, right? But I love the expression on his face when he won, because it was such a humble, clear moment. You could tell just the expression on his face. And you could tell he really. And I mean, I really believe that he felt it within himself to just this opportunity to rise to the occasion. Because you just disrupted every timeline that had humanity being destroyed, basically. Because
Well,
it was.
I think he also found his a deep connection to God after this as well, because it's a miracle.
Yes.
So
And that's a good point too. A miracle could definitely do that. So, I mean, I'm floored at how impressed I am with so many of the things that President Trump has done, and I mean more than anything, his growth, because that is not an easy situation. When you are used to being the boss and just when you say do something, it gets done. And there's no reason when you have that kind of a life to come into public service, right? Which is what the presidency should be, right? Now, what he and then in that, you're taking on the biggest secret society to ever exist that is ingrained in every aspect of humanity, so much so that we have different names for it and everybody calls it something different. Everybody knows something goes on, right? And everybody thinks they have the whole story, but you know, really no one does. So to try to
well,
drain the swamp, so this is the balance that Kim's had to strike. That how do you drain the swamp that connects and touches everyone, right? Because the swamp touches your bank account too, right? It touches everybody.
right,
So to do this in a way that you're creating awareness on one side and you're literally raising people up, right? To lead and to actually fulfill the obligations of the Constitution, which is a government that's for the people, it's by the people, and it's of the people. Now, to have that happen, it requires people to participate. And that doesn't mean generations of family that have been trained, to play this part of, service and leadership, but people who are innately given to service, people who are innately humanitarian, people who naturally they would lead, but they've been told that you don't run for office because you don't have enough money, because the only way to win is to be ready to throw a ton of money out there to put your face everywhere and be ready to be lied about and demolished and run hate campaigns and do whatever it takes, because that's what we have now, right?
right.
And when was the last time you had somebody that you just and then they even pervert that, right? They do a casting call to have Alexandria Cortez brought in.
Well, just on that note, when I think of the majority of the new Democrats that came in were all part of the CIA. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally a casting call in the CIA to pull these people into, because they're losing control and they really needed to firm up with people that were totally in their pocket.
Yep.
You know,
And and the CIA in and of itself, again, there's two branches to everything. There's the CIA and there's the SS, right? Or the yeah, the SS. It's the branch of the CIA that was set up that runs out of Rockefeller Center in New York City. Okay, and that was set up by you know George Herbert Walker Bush, right? And that was by instruction, right? But he set that up a long, long time ago. And then for most of the first year of President Trump's his presidency was run by Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney was I mean, there's a movie out now trying to glorify kind of Dick Cheney, but it's like it just from what I understand, it just shows how ruthless he is, right? But
the most if you look at the George Bush funeral, right, and all the envelopes moving around, if you watch Cheney, it's eerie. I mean, he's staring right at you through the camera, right? And
oh
he's
yeah,
necessary and he's focused on it. It's very eerie. So, and listen, we kind of jumped around a little bit. Let's go into like an update. If where are things? I mean, Kim wiped out the overlay system, that what they put into place, and was able to download funds, and that was moving out to the Hurricane Michael victims. So where does that stand?
so there's some things going on that I can't really put out on air. Um, in this situation. But what I would say is everything that the way we've been told and what we've been reading is accurate. And Kim certainly has them on the run in every possible way. Um, the right now she is actually using. She's had several different methods, but this situation kind of opened up some opportunities. So, the key has always been not just to bring the money in, as we've talked about, right? Because say Kim brought the money in to me as a project owner, right? And so I had my money as a project owner. What they were doing for a long time is they would track the money, right? So if I got it, then say I went to pay a contractor. So I pay $1 million to a contractor, and by the time it hits his account, they've already stolen it from him, right? So the key has been not she couldn't ever just protect individual accounts or individual people. She has to protect everyone, right? So that's been the challenge. So she has uh, figured out how to do that, um, and she's currently just cleaning up a few pieces, and then that should be able to move pretty freely. You know,
So the way you described it, is that if the money transfers, like, okay, you get it in your account and it was protected, but now if it moves to the next person, it's also still protected. That money that moves is protected.
right? Now that's the that is ultimately what she ended up doing, and this is after several different directions of attempts that we made and deals that they broke, right? Because what they always try to do is to get her to transfer money in, and it didn't matter where it went because they're you know like the tentacles of an octopus, right? They're touching everything, so it doesn't matter where you put it, they would take it, right? And they would constantly break deals, because initially they told her if as soon as she proved that she could just bring the money in anywhere in the United States, that everyone would cooperate with her. And clearly they haven't, and she's funded at this point. She's funded governments and all types of projects, and obviously, the United States government primarily what she's funded is payroll, by the way, right? So that people didn't lose paychecks. So every government employee has been paid by Kim since March of last year.
So
So
basically, a year, 1 year from
yeah,
to March.
yeah. But obviously, if you pay the government salary for a year, right, you would like to believe, particularly, I mean, in the United States, we for the most part we trust that the government's run by elected officials that have our best interest in mind, that represent the people. But the reality is, I mean, here we are in this moment, and if no one else caught on, I mean, think about this. I can't remember exactly the date of when it was the Hurricane Michael, but there President Trump just funded debris removal. Right now, debris removal is almost the first one of the first things you do because you have to clear the roadways.
Right.
Right, I mean, you have to clear the roadways just to get the ambulances in. So how is it? So this really proves exactly what we've been saying. So anybody who wants to, because people are constantly like, "Oh, that's a lie. That's not true." They're always trying to throw shade on what we've been doing. But anybody in the industry, in the world of construction and uh, you know, in relief efforts, how could you possibly just be doing debris removal 9 months later or 8 months later, whatever it is, from this event? It doesn't make sense. So why would he fund that now? And it's just a reason to bring money in because obviously people have probably gone out and moved the debris themselves, right? But that's the kind of thing that happens. Um,
Yeah,
there's all
neighbors
these.
help neighbors. It's one of the things that we are good at, where we help one another when there is no other source. We do it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Mm.
Yep. So that's so it's moving. So funding for projects, what is I anticipate that's going to be this next move. We know, I know that Thomas Williams with the People's Club, and I know Create Change, that we haven't fallen off. That we've maintained, our status to be, to be able to distribute funds. Kim and I did work on a plan starting a little more than a year ago, where we started to set up contracts with people to go out and set up these Create Change distribution centers, right? That would basically they'd be actively involved with community revitalization is how we titled it, which is what my original project was, right? And but the idea is really just so you can identify, projects, businesses, people in need, and things of that nature, and literally start to restore and have the planet match, have the people match the resources available on the planet because they've been here, right?
Well,
So
I just this morning, I was, hurt, going through videos, and I saw one from Create Change Denmark about
yes,
the project that was, where they're saving I would say the original breeds of animals in Denmark, because
yeah,
the newer breeds are tailored, and they don't have as much nutrition in, like, the milk that comes from those cows. The the new breeds that produce more volume, right?
yeah,
And so that's a marvelous, just to see that little video snippet. I think it's a very good way of saying these are the kind of projects, someone on themselves already went out and did this. They've already, secured cattle. Now, of course, they're doing it on their shoestring budget to make it happen, and they're out of funds, and they need more to keep going with what they're doing. Those are perfect projects to fund.
that's and that's the goal, right? These are projects that are in line with the best interest of humanity, of the planet, and the individual human experience, right? Because you have to consider the individual and the kind of universe they create around themselves. And I encourage anybody who's actively part of Create Change, or who's come on board with the Guardian of Camelot. I encourage you, to find a way to put some kind of video document out there like that, because it really adds to what we're doing, right? Because for the longest time, I mean, you don't have anybody else in the kind of currency movement, people expecting these massive funds. They don't really talk about what they're actually going to do, right? They set up structures and they talk about money, but it's never been about money, right? It's about the people. So if it's about the people, then what are the people doing? Because people, these real humanitarian projects, they almost never get funded, right? So when they get a little bit of funding, what ends up happening is by the time they get to the phase two of their development, the funding source dies out, right? Because they've already got the PR push, or whatever it was to make it look like they were doing something. And then it turns into like crowdfunding or donations, right? And that's
Yeah.
very common. And that's you know, I mean, I talk to I talk to project owners all over the world, and all of them. I mean, some of these people have been looking for funding for 20, 30 years, or they've been involved in the funding practice, and it never comes through, right? Because at the end of the day, they don't want
I
you to
was
have it.
I was noticing the same thing, and that's why when I was in, 3 times a year at CEO Space, we have people coming in wanting to do charitable, uh, based organizations, and they're always looking for money. And I said, okay, well, once you get your money, make something that makes money so you can keep doing what you want to do. Don't turn into a charity that's always looking for money. Make something that makes money enough so that you can expand and keep growing with your good intention. So you don't do it for profit, but make money so that you can put that into, where you're moving. So, any of those, out there that got humanitarian funds and that first money came in, I say, great. Don't do what you were going to do. Now make something that's going to continue to make money so that you can turn it around and fund the rest of everything you want to do.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing, there's so much abundance. We have another organic farmer down in Ghana, and he's just on his own dime, you know, already purchased the property, and he's cultivating and finding ways to get things done, which in and of itself is tremendous. But the thing that I look at is because we know this what being affiliated with the trust, we know that there really is abundance that we can grasp. It's here. It's not it's not myth. It's not this big lottery payout kind of stuff, but it's real tangible assets that are for this purpose. And and because we know that, you have to think these guys, they get devoured. Now that's what happened up there in Denmark. They had these, and actually the Susan Hovman, who is the narrator for those videos, uh, she's actually she's describing it. She's and we talked about branding a different term, right? So she's talking about doing integrated, holistic farming, right?
Mm.
Now, it seems silly. Like, why would you care about a term like that? But we're all familiar with organic farming. Well, because if you want to be organically certified, you have to get a certain, you have to pay a certain amount of money, which essentially cripples that industry. And then, what they do is they make it so you have to regulate it with certain things, and ultimately they pervert, the quality of the food, and so
And
that they can
well,
continue to do things like that.
yeah, I know the people that were involved in creating the original term organic, right? The hippies, right? and
Wow.
and uh, and they had, this was their term. It was taken over by the government and then perverted. So, you know, the so there would be organic milk coming from cows that were, normal set of herd cows that they had, and they were giving GMO and shots, hormone shots, and everything. And then they said, okay, well, 3 months of you going out and eating some good grass over here in the field, right? Now you're organic,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so everything that they did to distort it, and the certification and everything like that. So really coming up with your own term and then copywriting it and then protecting it from the government taking it over. you know this is because that's what they do. They'll take it over and then they distort it so that it's not what it means to be. So then you have to pay all this money for organic quality food, which probably is a little bit better than the other food, but it isn't what its original intention was.
Absolutely. And what's sad about that is we have, I mean, the actual technology, available, that it was made by the government and kept from everyone, right? Yeah, if you look at the website, Cure for Hunger, right? Cure the number four hunger, I think it's .com. Cure for Hunger, they're using skunkworks technology. It's the contract they won. Now what they did was, the skunkworks, they basically had this tech so that they could create these biodomes, and the biodomes are powered by, natural, um, Tesla energy generators, right? So they're completely free. You could drop them anywhere with no infrastructure built at all. They use atmospheric water generators that can basically, as long as it's very low. It's like, 40% humidity or something like that. They can abstract, you know, drinking water to water all the crops, and have, thousands of gallons of water available a day, of fresh drinking water, unadulterated, without fluoride, without chlorine, without all the additives that, for whatever insane reason, they're added, right? And you could just drop that, and it'll feed the one dome. It'll take about an acre of land, will feed 50,000 people. And you can drop it in the middle of the Sahara Desert. So if you could grow crops in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you could certainly grow them in any place else, any other place that, you could think of, right? Um, and it's in that environment that this dome creates is, nearly sterile, right? It's completely unadulterated. It doesn't allow bugs into it. It's so tight that the food, is natural. I mean, as natural as any food can be that's grown in a dome, right? But so
I want one.
oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But but then on top of that, I mean, this company's, really, the guy, he's great, and I feel, we've had a contract to, move forward with them, right? And their first year of production, the best they could do is probably produce 500 units, right? Now, so we agreed. I said, look, we'll produce the 500 units. Now, the reason why we were willing to purchase those units isn't to dominate the you know food industry. It's to make sure the food is actually given to the people as it is, right? And put this out and make sure it actually comes to production. Now, there's other organizations coming to them, right? And they're saying, we'll purchase 20,000. right? Now, the reason why they come up with these ridiculous offers, right? Like, of whatever they're going to give them, we're going to give you $100 billion for 20,000 units, right? The reason why they do that is so they can tie up the product and it never comes to market,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they do this all the time. It is constantly happening. There's better products that exist for everything, and they get bought up by the industry leader so that they don't come out and hurt their business. Now, if the industry leader was smart, they would integrate these things into their own products, but they don't. They don't concern themselves with us like that, right? They don't really care about doing that. And this happened. There's in Africa. There's all these countries now. Kim has she went out and did this work. I mean, she went to all these different companies. She went to Boeing. She went to Ford. She went to you know um, all the different major manufacturers because there's this whole industry that exists, right? Because you can be in various countries throughout Africa, and they'll have one ambulance in the whole country or one school bus, right? So in the United States, you could easily have a thriving economy just on building the frames for those buses and those ambulances, right? And she went and took this offer to Boeing, to Ford, and these different major companies, and they could not believe that there was this market that existed. They said that's not possible. There's no way there's a market like that that exists. That's how small-minded they were. And she presented them statistics, facts, analytics to show exactly this is right now. We, and not only that, but she's the funding source. She's the principal, right? So she's saying, I will pay for them to have this business, to produce this, and I'll use you to do it, right? So now you end up creating a thriving business, all types of businesses in Africa, right? Like we create all types of jobs, right? Assembly jobs and production jobs and all types of skilled labor, and then eventually it's going to create drivers and a new need for medics and things like that. It would any logical person looking at the economy and wanting it to thrive, or even wanting their own business to thrive, would jump on that, and they didn't take it. Now, so those are contracts she's made, and this is part of the reason, because of that ignorance at very high levels, that when we talk about, and we talk about the plan to change things, the way to do it is we have to make sure that there's nothing like that, like these industries, that can stop us from being successful. So
Right.
that means every aspect from the mine, to the manufacturing plant, to the refinery, to the assembly plant, you know, um, to the detailing center, to the retail location, all those things, we have to make sure that people, real people, local people in those areas have control of them, have ownership of them. Not one industry who's way up on a hill and oblivious, right? And has had this passed down from generation to generation, but they don't really understand how it works, right? When things get bad, they just cut employees, right? Instead of looking for new markets, they don't think innovatively, and they haven't for a long time. So that's why this is really the opportunity to create a new world where people are in a position where they're not only in power, but they're supported to stay that way, and they're supported to be successful, right? And given the tools and the education and the resources they need to do that, and that's why the transition is so huge, because what they just opted for, this 2 weeks, right? And I would hope at this point, it's not just the people of Manna and Create Change that are mad. Everybody should be furious. At some point, everybody should be mad that they just negotiated our enslavement to continue. And at some point, the desire to be free, it has got to drive you, because when you realize that this is all right here, you know, it's it's like being, you know, 2 inches from the surface of the water, and you can't get those last 2 inches, but but that next breath of fresh air is two
Well,
inches away.
so we have the art of the deal, right? When we talked about Sun Tzu, the art of war, and that's how Trump modeled his book, the art of the deal. Part of the art of the deal is making sure that the deal is accomplished, right? That you are able to move forward with it. So, I'm playing Trump's advocate on this and saying that giving a 2 week period was not because they really wanted the enslavement to continue. They wanted to basically put everyone on notice that was really waiting for that GCR to happen, that they're not going to be able to receive all those massive funds this direction, and that they really need to realize what's going on. So to start them to get that wake up period, they probably were already waking up because a lot of them are very angry, right? Because you've gone through denial already, and now you're angry about it. So the next stop is, okay, 2 weeks to take action. And I think that's where we're at. We only have a few more days to go.
Well, I mean, yeah. And to be honest, uh, you could very well be right. I personally will not give up my self-righteous indignation about that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Um,
hear you. I'm playing, as I said, Trump's advocate on that one, and thinking that there has to be some you know positive reason why this was done, and that's what I can kind of go. I may be completely wrong, but
well, but no, but and by the way, I'm not. You could very well be true. That could very well be true. And I immediately, I'm by no means a Trump apologist or anyone else's, but I immediately was hoping, hoping that this trip out to Vietnam was to expose and show everyone these vaults are empty, right? So, he kind of called their bluff, right? And yeah, okay, let's go. We'll do that. And that's what I'm hoping. And he went out there to allegedly sign for this $27 trillion in fake super notes and make those currency.
right,
And when he went there and the his Secret Service went in and there was nothing in the vaults, again, it's just more proof of everything we've been saying for the past year. And at this point, it really gets it's interesting. I remember when I uh Yokoyama Legal and I we decided we were going to really escalate things because we were so mad about the way they had handled the RV, and we thought, look, this isn't right. There gets to be a point where the behavior just doesn't seem to match the benevolence they're talking about, right? When you constantly tell people it's going and then you don't go. And then the reasons that they gave were pathetic in my opinion, and I still think they're pathetic. I think it's even more pathetic that we've accepted it. When they're like, oh, well, you're negotiating terms for all these countries, and they're looking at the long haul and all that stuff. They don't have the right to do that. You don't have the right to enslave humanity and then wake them up, let them know they're enslaved, let them know their freedom is here, and then continually bait them and tease them and hurt them that way. So I didn't find but when we when we went after it, we started the process to file the lawsuit, and we gathered so much evidence. I mean, it is amazing how much evidence we have on this, that Wells Fargo openly said they're going to have a revaluation. So after a while, I started to conclude, well, they believe it. It's not even really corrupt for a lot of these people. They believe it because that's what they've been told. Just like you said, they're not necessarily bad people. And these different countries of the world, they believe it. The problem is that no one understood it. They didn't understand what they were really doing. They didn't know the behind the scenes, that it wasn't just to demolish the economy and buy it back for pennies on the dollar, which was the plan. It was to do that, and in the process create a system completely independent of the assets which had been registered to someone else, give those assets away, and then take what was left and allow the world to devour itself, because that's exactly what would have happened. And they would have, this was a threat. I have had this confirmed directly by the military and the CIA. The Rothschilds got up in 2017, in September 2017, at the United Nations, and they said that if anyone accepted funding from the Manna World Holding Trust, that they would unleash a biological weapon that would kill every man, woman, and child on the planet.
how
So,
nice of them.
well, and if you think about it, I've always thought this was funny in movies. When you have like a super villain and they're dedicated to destroying the planet, but it's like, hey, you live here, right? What are you
Yeah,
doing? So they obviously had other aspirations, right? And they were willing to kill everyone. And a lot of these people in these different countries have seen them do things because they had access to technology that was kept from us. And because of that, they really see them as gods and they're terrified of them, you know,
Hmm.
like your worst nightmare of gods, right? So, and so, but even with the lawsuit, we we went down this path, and inevitably when you start making noise like that, I was getting death threats, and mobsters were calling me up telling me to, that I was messing it up for everybody, because it messed up their way of life, and they all thought, hey, we're gonna get in. So if any of those guys are listening, any of the uh we'll say the creative business construct that has controlled the world, um all of you were included in the losses, just so you know. Every one of you would have died too. All of you.
Yeah.
It was not a plan for us to get killed and you guys get over on us. All of you would have died, and everybody who's in a middle management position, for the cabal, or and they think they're working for the government, or all of you are included in that too. So all of you supporting the GCR to make this come to pass. I know it's not your intention. I know I don't doubt that you don't have a malicious bone in your body. You just want to be free. I get it. That is not the path. The path, if you stay on that path, it will kill every. If you were successful, we'd all die, and that is exactly what would happen.
So, part of looking at the past, right, is that's been there all this time in the background is eugenics, right,
Yes,
and wanting to basically eliminate, from the human strain certain things that were not liked. Now, whether that was your color or your, whatever other factor they wanted to include in that, it's become more of just a class based eugenics, right? Just like on that movie 2012, I think this was where the world was going to be destroyed, and they ended up building giant ships, to float on the water because it's a flood again.
right, right,
Right? So you had $1 billion ticket. So you were rich enough, you could buy your way in. You could buy your way into the underground cities. You could buy your way off planet to Mars. You could buy your way, to, a place that wasn't going to be where the calamity took place, where the zombie apocalypse was going to take place, or the frying of the planet by a solar flare, whatever it was, whatever it's to be. The plans that they had in place were really to eliminate most of us. And and if you were not in, you may have thought that you're in the in crowd. You may not have actually been. Can you
right.
really trust them? Have they been honorable in all of their actions?
In any of their actions, I mean,
In any of
to
their
be
actions,
quite
yeah.
really,
In any of their
no,
so,
that and that's the reality that um, and that's the truth. I mean, that is the truth, and you know, there's always been a good side to all of these organizations, right? That's how they sell people on it, right? Because people innately, you know, want to do good.
yeah.
They want to do good things. We are naturally prone to help one another. It's just how we're made, right? It's the same way you would help somebody in your family. It's who you are, right? So that gets programmed out of us over time, right? They like you remember when Michael Jordan's father got killed on the side of the road helping somebody change a tire, right? And you'd think, man, you're Michael Jordan's dad. You stopped to help somebody change a tire. What a kind thing, like you don't have to do that, like but it's just who he was, right? And then he got killed, and so that they made that the biggest news story, right? So after that, somebody's on the side of the road, you know, looking to get their needs help. We drive right by, because the way it was programmed into us is that everyone's trying to kill you, right? You need to be afraid. In New York City after September 11th, it was if you see something, say something, right? And they had anybody who was forgetful leaving a bag. I mean, they would be everyone was a suspect. And so everyone in New York it was in a really a horrible state in New York where everyone was constantly suspicious of everyone else. It was so quiet in New York. No one would talk to each other. You would go, at the time I was bartending, and, uh, and I remember every television, there was like 19 televisions, and every television would play the plane crashing into the towers over and over and over.
Right.
And it was programming. And then they said it's terrorists. And you know what? To be honest, it was terrorists, but it wasn't Islamic based terrorists, right? It was
Deep state.
political yeah, deep state political terrorists directly involved. And to be honest, it's been proven. The CIA, the gentleman there who was he was an engineer for the CIA who designed the plan to take down I think building 7. He's been on tour talking about it. There's
Mhm.
no denying anymore that that's what it is. He worked for the CIA and was actively a part of it. So when that's happening, the the next question is kind of, how is it that no one is responding? Think about JFK. There is no bigger conspiracy in history that people have questioned than JFK. Whole movies made about it. It's a big deal. Any conspiracy theorist in the world would be fascinated by this. Trump comes into the presidency and releases the documents and lets everyone see the things that were hidden. And if you study the documents, it traces back to the source of his assassination was, a combination of various agencies working together to pull it off.
Right.
But nobody talks about that. But that's public document. You can go to the CIA library, and they've changed it now because we started really pushing this. You go to the CIA library, and last year or a year and a half ago, they released 13 million previously classified documents, and in there, a million of those pages are about UFOs, and I mean, undeniable proof of UFOs all over the place. They just put out a video showing like this is real, right? The FBI has a similar library that shows the same thing. They show MK Ultra, and they explain how, and I know because here in New York, it showed how MK Ultra program to mind control the entire United States was implemented at the collegiate level at colleges all over the country, thousands and thousands of them. And you got to think, if that's what they're telling you, what's the real story, right? Because it's always going to be a lot bigger, right?
Yeah.
It's just the tip of the iceberg, and the real reality is beneath the surface.
It's the small red pill.
Yeah, but then now here's the programming, right? And this is what we all got to kind of realize, right? We hear these things that are so immense, they're so incredible, that our natural slave mentality kicks in, and we go, what can I do about it? Well, that's the way it is, right? And we chalk things up like, oh, typical. We just think we hear something incredible and we just think it's normal. We just think it's normal, but it's not. It's not normal. They're telling what they've done. Now, part of the way they've done this is this smart dust that they put in the chemtrails, right? Which the smart dust is these nanites, right? These tiny microscopic uh, technology, right? And they put this in everything. And then this goes out and it becomes just a natural kind of part of our organic structure where it's normal to have these nanites in our body. So when you find them, it's not even odd, right? But it's but they can be activated. That's why, they activate people all the time. And that stuff is proven. It's not, as much as people want to make it seem like, oh, I don't know, that's crazy conspiracy. It's not crazy conspiracy. It's logical. They've done it. There's facts. There's people who have literally survived these programs, and they're talking about it openly on the air. They just don't talk about it nearly as much as the same message is repeated over and over again of nonsense that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's how they overwhelm us. So.
Yeah, and this is also why it's good just to tune out completely of all of that. I mean, for the most part, I even tuned out of Fox News because I know it was controlled opposition, and it's only given a portion of the other side, but it was of comfort to hear some things that were not that were at least closer in alignment with what I was thinking. But I tuned out. I mean, recently I've tried picking up things like from the State of the Union, and I started picking up on some things. And, Sean Hannity's very upbeat about he's implying that the indictments are all going to be coming, and we are at 90,000 sealed indictments. It's continuing to go up 5,000 per month in sealed indictments. So it looks like they have a particular staff, right? And their production level is at 5,000. they can process 5,000. So maybe Trump needs to increase the staff there and move things along so they can max out the production for the month. If they're consistent at 5,000, can they be consistent at 10,000? And get us there twice as fast. So, but this is something that is best that we just shut off all of that mainstream media. Just literally focus on the alternative media, and though it is not professional, and we deal with issues like not being able to connect or whatever. At least we are not trying to give the 3 a.m. talking points, right? And it's like,
right.
It's the stuff that we're discovering. We're trying to do research. We're trying to analyze to the best of our ability, and we may be wrong, but at least we're trying to make an honest effort of it.
Well, yeah, and it's also, like that. Your your friend there, I think she identified herself as the Earth, right? Who was saying that you and I are
Oh,
lying, is what she said.
Cindy. Yes, I know
Yeah.
you showed me that video. I said, "Oh, that's interesting." Yeah, the airship. I mean, the air, like a heir apparent. The airship.
Oh, that's what it is. The Airship Trust. Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
so she's well. Cindy, watch your language. We're trying to do our best here. So,
Dan Lutz, you of course she likes you. She was calling me a jackass and different names. I guess I'm not as much of a sweetheart as you are because I just
aw
it's
shucks.
amazing. Yeah, it's when you hear someone like someone who is talking about these things, who's she makes us all look bad. She's talking about she is Earth. Is what that's what she said. She said, "I am the Ankh." Right? Is what I watched. I tried to go through some of her stuff to see what she was talking about. And she said that I didn't know the history. I didn't know what Marduk was. Listen, nobody knows the history. I'm giving you the best I have, and believe me when I say this, please, anybody who has the whole story, bring it out because I'm not even trying to claim I know all the details. Matter of fact, I referred people back to Thomas Williams, who has a better grasp on it than most. But I've heard things with Thomas. I'm like, I don't think that's quite right. What I look for is the
Me too. I mean,
principle.
I don't accept everything I hear from Thomas Williams. Because I know he's probably giving his best shot at it, right? We all
Yeah,
are kind of kept in the dark, and every string that we pull on to try and get to the end of the line, it kind of like splits off in 5 directions. Which way do you go, right? So we take our best effort. It could be, a lot of the things that we might be focused on might be a complete psyop. I think that they have a civilization on Mars, that we've been there for 50 years plus, and starting with the Nazis, right? And they had anti-gravity back then. It's you can see video of anti-gravity craft floating off the ground. They couldn't quite control it, but that was in the 30s. you
yeah,
know
I know, right?
Tesla
No,
worked on anti-gravity. Do you think he didn't have a way of producing anti-gravity?
right.
I'm sure he did. And these technologies have existed we've been kept away from this information. But now it's out that there may be atmosphere on Mars. It's breathable. Maybe you need some breathe assist, but maybe you don't need a helmet. you know, but this I'm more in line with thinking that we have a society there. That's why I say their plan was to go wait on Mars while they cleanse the planet of the people that they don't desire, right? And
Yeah, that's right.
and of course, it's better not to nuke the whole place. If they could find a way of having us all kill ourselves, that would be better for them, not for us. But
Well, right. All their methods were mainly designed around us devouring ourselves. I mean, quite literally. Like you said, there's an actual um, virus that they created to cause us to
well, they tested it in
crave human
Florida.
flesh.
Right? When I first heard that this was happening, right? That there was literally cases of this happening. So
Yeah,
and there was just I'll take a stab at maybe a month, 6 weeks ago. There was something that was going on in L.A. where these helicopters swooped in, right? A series of like 3 or 4 helicopters, Black Hawk helicopter coming in at night, right? And they landed in front of a building, the Guatemalan Art Center, which was a closed up building. It wasn't in it was maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seemed that they came in and they extracted something wearing biohazard suits. So
yeah.
later, there was someone that gave some intel saying that that was a biological weapon that was going to release the zombie apocalypse in LA when they demolished that building 2 months from now, which is what it really be about now, probably the Ides of March, right?
Right.
So they would create this calamity, right? Then they can blame the financial collapse on and move forward. So and kill off a bunch of people, right?
Which, yeah, that's and those things are like what's so amazing about this is like you know um it's not magic that these things go away, right? And there does get to be a point where you can't rely on your mythical superheroes to handle these things. You have to get involved, right? You got to ask yourself, like, when do we decide like they've gone too far? I mean, at this point, it's like, I mean, if there was, you have to believe that these nanites contribute to the lethargy and the apathy, right?
Yeah,
And I've said this for a long, long time, that the enemy is much the number one weapon used against us is the creation of apathy. It's to desensitize us to things that are appalling, right? To make things that are astonishing and terrifying seem like they're not that big a deal. Like it's just a random occurrence. But even disease isn't a random occurrence. It's just it's created. The CDC, they registered the HIV virus and cancer. And they registered them because they created them. They were created and they were tested. Because when you it's just like any other scientific process, you have to show where you tested it, and it shows they tested it in the vaccines and with the polio vaccines in Africa, right? And then there was some medication they used to administer it to the homosexual population in New York. And they hit at the exact same time, and that was a planned attack.
I thought it came from gay monkeys.
Yes, my sons thought that too. My sons said the same thing. Yeah, but that's
So that's the
it was
cover
administered.
story, right? They came
Yeah,
from gay monkeys.
yeah, right. Because and that was a joke, right? Because are so they hate the African people. That's a fact. Um, and they this is to me is the most hypocritically ironic thing I've ever heard. But they also hate the whole homosexual population, right? So because they look at it as shameful to be that way, to be openly gay. Meanwhile, they're raping and molesting children on a regular basis, right? It's a normal practice, and doing all types of horrible, deviant things. But that is okay because it's part of the ceremony and the life that they live, right? And that's the they feel like they have the right to be that hypocritical. They because of who they are. So that's kind of that's the thing that I get a little frustrated with this process is like, am I the only one here who's like, that's a ridiculous option? Are we really going to let that be what we become? That
I
we're
think
just going to let
Tom
those people
Flynn
rule?
was, I caught part of his show. He was saying that someone where I didn't quite hear where it came from, but they had registered 60 plus genders. 60. 60.
What?
How there's two.
There's just two.
There's an
Yeah.
occasional, mix up, right? Maybe on 1 in 10 million, or 1 in 100 million hermaphrodites, right? Someone literally born with both sex organs, right?
And
So
in
they
that
have a
case,
decision to
it's
make. They have a decision to make, right? They can go with one or the other, or continue with both. but
yes. Yep.
but everyone else, they're born one way or another. The rest of it is a learned behavior. And that's where the science leads. All the rest of the science that says that you're born with it is garbage, right? And it's the real, it's a choice. Now, if someone want to learns that and say that's what they want to do, that's up to them. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that, but I don't think they should be promoting it as the norm. You know,
Yeah. I mean, that's the perversion of society that
right,
we're seeing all the time. They're trying to say that everything they're saying means the opposite, right? So everything,
right.
which is
Yeah.
my point yesterday, by the way. I wasn't trying to tell you to lose weight. I was trying to make a point that, even though what I was saying,
Well,
the
it's a perfect
words
point. Are
mean
you
one thing.
saying that? I'm on
Yeah,
exercise.
right, exactly.
I'm telling you.
Right,
I
exactly, right.
I went for my walk up the mountain yesterday. 40-minute jaunt.
I was worried for a minute. I'm like, maybe I didn't know Dan well enough to use that example yet.
No, but the thing is, I took it on
no,
purposely,
I know you
reversed
did. I
it
know. Yeah.
to show the mirror effect, and controlling my actions, right? I'm now going to now take an action and say, and act in the programmed way, right? So
Right.
yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not worried about. I've been much heavier in my life than I am right now, but I know when I tend to get so focused on a particular project, I tend to not take care of myself, and
Yeah.
and that's it's good for me to wake up and go and do things. So I've been doing my exercise, so that's good. Yeah, so
Well,
I'm in my exercise shirt. So I was gonna do an early morning walk, but then you know one phone call leads to the next, and then anyway I had to. So
well,
it's okay.
it's amazing how they've consumed us with the pursuit of money in so many ways, right? Not in your case, in that case, but like what you said, that all these projects now they all have a great idea, but then if you take artists and creators and healers and you waste their time making them pursue money, you detract from the whole of
Oh
humanity,
yeah.
not just that individual. You detract from everyone
Well,
because they just want to bring the project to life.
the way I talk about abundance-based economy, abundance-based world, I can see where a lot of socialists and even communists would basically say, "Oh yeah, I like that," right? Because I'm literally saying that the government is going to be the source of basically sending only money out, right? Never collecting it back. And wouldn't you love the government if they were always sending money out to you instead of trying to extract money from you? you know,
Sure, right.
so, but to have it go out into society, so and that even the base things that people do that are valued, and that could be anything from texting to art which is very much devalued in society, right? Until after the artist dies, then it's worth a lot, right?
Well, because then they can launder the money without worry or fear of paying the artist.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Yeah. So, well, it's a limited supply. Then they can control the supply. There's not more, and they don't have to share with the artist. Yeah. So, but and when you build an abundance-based economy, you're looking at something that is going to benefit all the people all the time, and those people can then stand on their own and they can do what they want. They can pursue those things that are close to their heart. I mean, an artist who's a true artist, when they make the choice to do that, they're usually taking a vow of poverty unwillingly, right? And it doesn't matter if it's
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've argued that my whole life that I don't think the starving artist really exists. I think what you have is there's certain artists who get some kind of grant funding to create, and a few of them are just super extreme because art supplies are expensive.
yeah.
you know,
Oh,
I lived for 6 months in my entire life as a full-time artist, and it was right after September 11th, and I was painting firemen from just in the various traumatic experiences as they were happening, and I would sell a painting, and I would have enough money to like pay off like one bill, buy a little bit of food, and like buy supplies for my next painting. And I did that for 6 months, and it was tough. I mean, obviously it was a tough time as well, but um, it was the best work I had ever done at the time too. So, yeah, like I was giving my best, and that's what I got. So it's hard. It's a struggle.
yeah. But these things are valuable. So people had the ability to pursue those things in their life. I'm not worried about the people not being able to make French fries. I'm not worried about those. There will be people eventually. Some people will have to say, okay, I'm going to make French fries. But if not, then it will be the robots. Okay, fine. But and I understand that the technology is a double-edged sword, and we don't want to be overtaken by iRobot and have an uprising, right, of the AI. Right?
Yeah, we don't want that.
Don't want
Yes,
that,
we don't
no.
want that.
And but these are things that we should be aware of as we move forward into technology things. The but certain things shouldn't need to be done by people. Living, going through the sewer system and and cleaning it out or replacing pipes and all these things could be automated things. And there's so many. What's that? Well, there's that one show that they were doing where the guy was doing the most disgusting
Oh
jobs.
yeah, the worst. Yeah, worst jobs in the world or something. Yeah, I know that guy. Right.
It was fun to watch the poor guy, right? It's like,
Yeah.
all kudos to him for doing it. But
Yeah.
there are, if we had the ability to pursue all those things that we think that we want to do, we would have a much different environment, right? And the value of people would be valued for what they're producing. So when we were kind of touching on merit-based systems, it's okay to have a merit-based system, I think, as long as the deciders of merit are coming from the people and it's basically by consensus. You know, and it shouldn't be something that's going to be implemented with an iron fist, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's where like your society system with currency, right? If you look, this is they what it's supposed to be here, right? In the United States, it's supposed to be sovereign states where it's recognized that this group of people came together, and moved to these areas, and they have certain things that they believe in, and that's why you have just people who just naturally gather together, right? You're gonna go to a place where other people have your same religion, your maybe the same weather that you like, and the same potentially the same hobbies, and so when you choose to live in a community and there's a merit-based system that rewards you, That's one thing, because you've made first of all, the person has to have free will the whole way. So you made a choice to live there. Now you live there and you agree with these are the things that have merit. Now that's where the people are empowered.
Right.
The problem with the meritocracy, right, is it's the it's the big brother of, the just a different version of the elite, right? They
It's,
want to control who has
yeah,
merit. And
it's a socialist system / communist system. It's just another version of it that's being sold. That's the way I see it. And
yeah, and it's the perfect transition to a society that has been manipulated and controlled by guilt, and told they're evil, and told they're no good, and told they're limited, right?
yeah,
Everything in our culture, everything that is not a, that is not a theory, that is a fact. It is, we'll affectionately make jokes. I married a Romanian Orthodox Jewish woman, and I I remember the first 2 years of our marriage. I was there at her family's house. I'm like, how do you function in life? I was so overwhelmed, because every time I would sit down to dinner with them, which was every Shabbat dinner on Friday night, I would sit down to dinner with their family, and I would have ideas, because that's what we do, right? We talk about different ways to do stuff. And then when you're that kind of person, you're always coming up with new ideas. And they would start every sentence with, you can't do that. Every time. I was going crazy. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? Yes, I can. Right? But that's the it's just natural. And
yeah, a cultural norm. It's
right.
part of how things get. And the really interesting thing. I've been around the world and spent time in a lot of cultures. And the thing about the American culture that was much different was that we were, even though it has become much more of an illusion than it was, the idea of freedom and being able to
Yeah.
create and do things is very much part of being an American. It's trying to be destroyed. This is one of the things that they really want to wipe out, is the creativity.
Well,
They want only one way, and it has to be their way. And if it's not, they'll destroy everything else to make sure that their ways is the only one that exists left. And that's what ends up failing anyway.
exactly. And I look at it like, if this is what I've been talking a lot about every day, all the time, to everyone I talk to. We There is a core of necessities that we all agree are necessities for all of us. There is a core of values that, if we're really tested on it, if push came to shove, if we were really allowed to detox from the toxic media, from the toxic programming, from the perversion of language, because a lot of times it reminds me of those, like Bugs Bunny with Elmer Fudd, you know, and he'd say, Elmer Fudd would be like, "Get in there," or like, "Yes, you did," and Bugs Bunny would say, "No, I didn't," and you go back and forth until Bugs Bunny would flip out and say, "Yes, you did," and then
No,
Elmer
I
Fudd would
didn't.
be, "Yeah, no, I didn't," and he goes, "I will not take it." Right? You're like, "Get out of here!" And next thing you know, he let him go free, just by, it was just programming, right?
Right.
And but that's a a funny but very realistic thing that happens to us all the time. And
Right.
and rec-
It's the mirror in effect, that we're getting from them. That's to say exactly what they're doing to us. They claim that we're doing. Right. So
right, yeah, they blame us for the very things they're subjecting us to, and then we are so programmed to that. This is kind of like what you talked about, how you would you were I forget what it was. We were talking. You said how you would you would complain, and people would cringe because you were complaining about something, like, because we're all trained not to say anything.
yeah, here
You know,
in the Philippines, if you complain, it's very unusual because they just accept what they receive, even though it's wrong and not what, like, mostly I'm referring to, like, going to a restaurant, but it's across the board. But most of the experience is very obvious. So you order something in a restaurant and it wasn't what it's supposed to be,
mhm.
and then when I complained, so what happened was there was a rib place, okay, barbecue ribs. You might not think that's available here in the Philippines, but everything is available here. And so it's it's a Filipino rib joint, right? Which is that's unusual, but you'll find all the normal rib joints you'd find in America. You'll find them here, but.
Okay.
But this is a Filipino one, and what I ordered, right? So everyone at the table ordered this, basically this $3 rib meal, right? And it was like the special. It's like the lost leader, and actually that's what most people order when they come in. I ordered, like the better meal on the meal because I wanted a bigger piece of ribs, right?
Right.
So, but when they brought it to me, it was like the lousiest thing, right? It was like there was absolutely no meat, all fat, and it was like the leftover of something. It was just really bad, and so I complained about it, and then everyone at the table was like shocked. I mean, they were literally horrified that I was going to complain, and the waitress, was indifferent, really. I mean, she just the normal, oh, I'm sorry, sir, all this, right? And I said, let me talk to the manager. I was like a shock, right? I want to talk to the manager. So not only is the waitress shocked, everyone at the table. There's about 8 people at the table.
Wow.
And so the manager comes over, and I say, look at what they received, right? Which was $3, and what I ordered was $10. Right? I said, look at what the difference is. I wanted to eat more. I'm a bigger guy, right? And so I get less, and it looks horrible, and it's all fat. I know
Right.
rich people have fat, but this was just fat. And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, but she brought me the $20 meal, not the $10,
Right.
and replaced what I. So I got more, right, than what,
Right.
and everyone was shocked that I actually, made out more, and she didn't actually. I actually didn't even get charged.
Of course. Right. They got your meal. Right.
Yeah. So everyone else, meal was charged, but mine was free, and plus it was the higher end meal, and so. But because I complained, and I said to everyone at the table, say, "Why are you all so shocked?" And so you shouldn't complain. I said, "Well, how do they know that there's a problem in their restaurant? If I didn't say
Right.
anything and I just accepted the meal, I wouldn't come back. So now the next time I
Right.
come, I'll actually come back to that restaurant forever." you know,
Right. Because
they get a loyal customer because I told them there was something wrong with their restaurant.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
No. But that training, like, it's very hard. And you know what? And truth be told, it's there's a obviously there's a very polite and diplomatic way that you can complain, and it's not offensive. But we're so used to just sucking it up and allowing this feeling of disappointment and feeling less than to consume us and become who we are, right? And it's almost like sometimes you just need somebody just to grab you and pull you out of that and say, "Hey, you're worth more than that," right? Like I believe in you. I see you. That's that that piece. I see you. That I don't know if you saw the movie Avatar, right? It's all blue aliens and they're but the greeting of this very indigenous culture to this planet, they would see each other and they walk in and like, I see you.
Hmm.
And I love that. I just every time, even when I watch the movie, I'm such a mush. It kind of brings a tear to my eye, right? Because I think everybody just wants that to start. And then that's why when someone does see you, it's so hard to let that person go. you know, and I think that what they've done is they've put this veil up in front of us that prevents us from seeing each other in a very spiritual and a very natural kind of way where we don't appreciate anyone else's struggle because our struggle is too real.
Right, and
And
you have fear against all new people.
right, exactly.
You're
Yeah, everybody.
frightened of doing anything with anyone. Someone does wrong to you that's new, and then you expect everyone else is going to do exactly the same thing. So
Yeah. Right. And then that's all it takes is one bad experience. And I actually read this a long time ago. Like one bad experience, people repeat. They'll tell 10 people about it. But if you have a good experience, we'll usually tell one or two. you know, so it's kind of funny. It's like from that standpoint, we're programmed to
well,
warn
this
people.
rib story I just told was a bad experience turned good,
Yeah.
right? So you can take any bad experience and find the good path to the positive energy to move forward with it, right? I even made it into a teaching moment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, complain. Even with my wife, she complains. When we're at a restaurant, she'll complain. Yeah, because she's understands that, right? So she'll
Yeah.
make her complaint. So she's a little bit more harsh about it than I am. But I think that comes in time, though, to kind of figure a way how to complain in a positive, manner. And it's like I'll talk about CEO space again. One of the teachings there is that you don't when you want to like help someone else, you don't want to come with a criticism,
That's right. Hmm.
but instead, what you want to come with is how you plus them. Plus, so you add to what they're trying to do instead of trying to take away from them.
Yep.
So hey, I've got something I want to plus you about. So this is the language. So you come up with language to do that, right? How do I plus
Yep.
you? This? So the create change Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that was a overall a very good thing. I want to plus you, but it's not a criticism, right? I'm really saying a plus, like repeating that, with everyone doing projects, right?
Yes.
Right. So this is what I mean by plussing. I already said this earlier, but I'm just giving the example how you plus someone, right? It's this was effective. So letting people know what's effective and what's good is just as good of a complaint.
That's great. Yeah. Well, and I really think it is an art form. They actually did do a study on this several years ago to teach people how to complain because it was getting so overwhelming for people in these customer service roles. They're like, you actually get a lot further by calling up and realizing the person on the phone is not the problem, right? They're not the one who caused your internet to go down, right? So to call up and go off because you're furious and you're paying this money. Well, guess what? All you're doing is making some poor guy who's going, making whatever an hour, their life harder, and you're not even making yourself happier, right? Like you don't feel better when you do that, right? Like, but a lot of people think that they associate it like I can't let them walk all over me, and I think that's the biggest illusion is that we think it's one another. We blame each other, right? So we all blame we think it's this guy and that guy and these different people, but it's not, right? It's set up to fail. Things are set up and designed to kind of backfire on us. And that's a reality. And I'll say and that learning that lesson changes your whole life because suddenly, I think about this with like road rage. Like I have literally like if people are going crazy behind me, like honking their horn and acting a fool, I have stopped my car, gotten out, walked back to that car to check on them to make sure. Now, granted, this isn't for everybody. Don't you probably shouldn't do this because I'm funny like this,
I've done it, so I'm just amused by it. Yeah.
but I remember I stopped this one time right like in an intersection. I got out and I walked back to the car and I'm like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, is everything all right now? And I really was showing genuine concern, but I wasn't. I was trying to show him how foolish he was being. I'm like, because there's 30 cars in front of me. Where do you want me to go? Right? Like, what are you honking about? Like, calm down. I know you got to get to your mom's, dinner or whatever, or your job, you know. But they put the stress on us and make everything so much more stressful than it has to be, you know. But if we can rise above it, it makes everything. It makes life much more fun too, So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I never get mad at road rage. I mean, I just figure if I'm late, and I hate to be late, because that's what they call dead people, right? When you're late, the late so and so. So I hate to be late, but you know what? I just realized it's probably just the universe putting me in a better path, better
Yeah,
timeline.
that's it. That's exactly the way I used to look at things. If someone cuts me off, rather than getting upset, I said, "Well, I'm supposed to be delayed. I'm not supposed to make that red light, right? It's okay.
Right.
You know, just you know, I'm gonna be there 10 minutes later, half an hour later. I don't make it until tomorrow. It's okay. I headed there and didn't make it. As on the worst case, yeah. But it's not really worst. It's just what it became. We attach our own fury and everything to these moments, and we
Yeah.
don't have to engage in that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In New York, on time is 15 minutes early. Right. That's on time. In New Orleans, on time is 15 minutes late. So because it's such a different environment, right? It all depends on where you're at. So I always
Well,
laugh at that. Like,
Philippines is called Filipino time, and
mhm.
Filipino time is not really defined. It's if you're an hour late, 2 hours late, you don't even call to let them know you're not coming.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow, that's
It's bad. It's really 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 bad about. No, I'm normally even in the Philippines, few minutes early. You know, maybe a few
yeah.
minutes late, 5-10 minutes, maybe something like that. But and I'll call, on the time. I'm supposed to be there. I call on the hour. Okay, hey, sorry, traffic, right? Everyone accepts that. It's like that's the common phrase, traffic. The word traffic
Right.
is the phrase,
Yeah.
and, and that's it because the Philippine traffic is the worst in the world, but is nothing compared to L.A. around Wilshire and
Yeah.
uh, in the West LA around the 405 freeway. I mean, that's just they created a situation where they created by installing a stoplight where there was no traffic and no need to put a stoplight. They created 2 hours of traffic jam every day because started and some people literally went in and sabotaged that light because they said, well, everyone knew that would cause the problem, and all trying to get rid of a light is difficult. I don't know if it's still there, but I remember it literally people would go in and sabotage it because it was causing so much mayhem so close to the freeway. It was backed up on the San Vicente. To both directions too. All the way, it would go all the way down to the beach. On San Vicente Boulevard, the traffic would not be able to move up just because of this one light. Anyway, that's all.
So Dan, I think I mentioned to you, but the young lady who was trashing trashing me and trying to appeal to your good reason, the who the Ankh, her channel on YouTube is Rise Together. I think it's called Rise Together. Little advertisement for her. If you want a good dose of what she claims to be reality, and you want a good comparison, please go watch her show. Go see what she has to say. Apparently, she is she's got the airship trust, right? That she says is real. And one of the things she says on that channel is that Kim is pretending to be her, and I think that's hilarious, personally. Um, that Kim,
Well,
Kim is not pretending to be
I
anybody, but
know it's not Cindy's name on that trust. I know that. So,
on the airship trust.
no, I don't know about the airship trust, but on the Manna World Holding Trust, it's Kim's name.
Well, but I was gonna say is I did invite her on your show. I didn't
Yeah.
ask, but I just kind of assumed that's okay. But I really think it's important to give her if she's around. I mean, she described that she wasted 3 hours watching us the other day, and I don't want to I don't want to bore people with our conversations. So, you know, if she's out there, I think you should maybe open it up to give her a chance to come on, and she can
Well,
set us straight. You know.
well, interesting thing enough is that I did look at the watch time about our videos, and our watch time is hour and 37 minutes before watching on average.
An hour and 37 minutes of bored people listening to us meander about how to change the world.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that's a pretty good use of time, personally. You know,
So
and they can
it's
participate.
interesting, you know. Well, it's okay. People have different perspectives. I know Cindy. She actually, I believe, started working as a part of Swiss Indo's effort out of New York. I think is how that worked. I might be wrong about the details about that, but but I don't know how she transitioned into the airship and all that. But you know, I know that she was, and I did speak with her once before. She wanted to make a cryptocurrency for, you know, I said I was willing to help, but that requires money. You know, it requires, you know, programmers, a team, and all this kind of stuff. And if you can't move funds to do anything, then it's hard to get things moving, and that's what it comes down to. Um, so, but you know, there's many efforts around the world that I've seen, you know, that where people are the one to give the signature to make the funds flow, and
Well,
there are many of them,
yeah.
and I don't want to, you know, doubt any of them. I want to let things, you know, happen as they see that they can make things happen. I'm happy to let those things happen that way. So I think,
Well, I'll tell you what. I have talked to several of these individuals as well, um, in the past year and a half, and they have reached out, in an effort to, um, work with us and work with Kim, and I've gotten Kim on the phone. In the beginning, I get Kim on the phone, and then I've learned to kind of discern through them myself for the most part, and for the most part, what happens every time is they have really amazing documentation, and I have no doubt that someone, and the person they describe the people they dealt with to get that authorization exactly the way you do. You know, benevolent, kind. You know, they saw something in this person that, you know, they could be the one to change the world, and so they gave them authorization over this trust. Right? It's never like, you know, anything. It never seems nefarious, right? Um, but so they give them authorization over something, and then what happens is they usually get you know, like Neil Keenan, for example, has for the longest time he had this, you know, black code book, right? And those black code books haven't been used since the early 70s or late 60s, maybe. I mean, it was really outdated. Now,
yeah.
Kim has every version of those code books, by the way. Every single version of those code books she has. And I can tell you that not one of them is used. Matter of fact, it doesn't matter what the code is, even so much as who the person is putting the code in. Because at the end of the day, it's especially now, codes are generated in real time. Right now, that's the truth. The codes are generated in real. I've been on the phone with Kim when she generates a code out of nothing, right? And I've had some very creative ideas for codes, just because I over time, but we haven't used those, anyways. But she generates codes in real time, so you know she knows who's coming through and what the transaction is and where it's supposed to go. But at the end of the day, the only one who actually has access to the assets, the only one, there's only one genetic match, and that's her. And that's what opens the trust is her DNA.
Well,
And
I
it's
think
nothing.
that's also one of the big red pills to that people would have to accept is like, you know, why her? You know, is her genetics? What's wrong with my genetics? You know, why is she the one? You know, or whatever. You know, but it doesn't really matter if she's actually able to download the files. You know, the why really doesn't matter. The Marduk story doesn't matter. What happens?
Yeah.
Where are we going to go from here? You know, if we're able to
Yeah.
download funds and move them into people's accounts and projects can get done, let's go.
That's it. That's right. And that is really, really the point. And then, so now her agenda is very transparent. She's the one who changed all the guidelines on the trust to return these assets to the people, right? Now, the previous agenda was to keep and enslave and execute this other agenda. And these were meetings that were so much higher than the Rothschilds were ever involved in. And she said at every one of those meetings, and she said they weren't even involved. They wouldn't even show up. I mean, they couldn't. They weren't invited. So it was so far above them. All these characters were trying to, you know, be in control now. And and the point is not to be like, because she's not trying to laud that over people. I mean, she doesn't talk about that. She's very careful. I mean, it's only from hours and hours and hours of conversation that I've learned these things over time. But she's not trying to law that over people. She's trying to empower people. She's trying to give things back to people. So this is the part that gets really is eye opening. Is so the government, because so the way we see it is, why would you give the money to the government? They're corrupt. They're the ones who are keeping us down. Well, to be honest, the government is controlled. I mean, they're not. I mean, they've been following orders as well. They don't. They're not like independently oppressing us, right? Like most of the government is made up of regular people, and then they put them in compromising positions. And by compromising their position, now they can control them, right? Because they're in a public office and their name is the most valuable thing they have.
Right.
So last thing you want is some horrible video coming out with, you know, evidence on it that shows this other side of them. And
The blackmailable material. That,
I
and
mean,
that's and that's
yeah,
the thing that people can believe that it happens. It happens, but they can't believe the extent to which it happens. That it's really not 2 or 3% of the people that are in power, but it's really like 99% of the people
absolutely.
in power. And the one that makes it through that's not and is able to maintain that is because some other way they got thrust into that position, and the system had no choice but to elevate them,
Hmm.
and that's rare.
And I mean, that is again, it's amazing that as soon as people hear a conspiracy, they immediately attach theory to it. But it's
Hello. Uh-oh, we lost Tank.
no, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm here. Yeah, I mean, if there's people actually conspiring to hurt us, right? That's not a theory, right? The question is, what are the facts? Now, the unique position that I feel very fortunate to be in, I get facts. I mean, the things I've told people a long time ago, I stopped dealing with rumor intel because Kim always backs up what she says. She's given me documentation on everything. So that's a big difference. Matter of fact, I remember a year and a half ago when the GCR was supposed to go down, right? And at that time, Kim was very patient. She didn't destroy my illusion right away. So I was still giving information to the White Hats, right? And I told them where the hackers were that were hacking, right? I even gave them the override codes to the United Nations Black server, which there's no way I should have those, right? At that time. And but then come to find out, the reality is that Kim's like a master teacher too. She was really doing it to show me that it was them that was hacking the trust. They were the ones doing it. So it wasn't like they were going to find somebody out. It was like, hey guys, they're on to you, kind of thing.
A little bit of sleight
So
of hand there.
yeah, but
Push it in their face.
well, it was kind of like because but it was a benefit to me to show me like this is what's going
Yeah.
on, right? And so that's what we're up against.
Well, it's
But
there it will be good to know if we're uh, can show this by facts. As it here's a project. Let's funded. Let's roll. right? So this is we're only how long away do you think? Days, weeks?
I honestly, I would say when we get to this point, um, there is a, you know, it's like what I learned from special ops guys is we never know anything till it's done, right? So now Kim, when she wants, when it's works to her position, she'll allow me to share, put things out,
Right.
which which I do, like, immediately, right? And I make sure, because if it's going to help, like everybody probably here on the call, I want to help, right? What I don't want to do is hurt anything, right? Now, in the current situation we're in, what I can say is that we are we are in the movement. It's already been bypassed. It's the reality of what's happening now is the fine tuning of, you know years and years of programming and operation and learning. So what everyone's about to, well, everyone who wants to, um, will be able to benefit from very soon, is that, we're, I would say, hours to days, I mean, potentially minutes. She could do this at any time, because at the end of the day, she has the absolute say on it. And but what I know for a fact is, this is one thing that has proven out time and time again, is Kim will always do what she says she's going to do. And I know, for a fact, that she has every intention of returning this money to the people. And you heard it from Tui the other day, um, when he said, they've all been waiting for her to fulfill her part of the deal, right, or her sole contract. So he said, right, but and that checks out with what Kim has told me, is that she knows, you know, these other parties, right, these other tribal leaders who are the indigenous caretakers of the earth, who are still intact, right, that have, originally, the tribal bloodlines that exist there. There's individuals from each of those that has a similar genetic anomaly to Kim, but she just happens to have the most. And
Mhm.
because of that, she has the kind of the first round of things. And then these other tribal leaders, because the planet's being returned, you know, to the original owners, so to speak. Now that doesn't mean separate from us, because all those indigenous tribes, for the most part, they all have a, and not to say they haven't been wrapped up in some things over the years, but for the most part, they understand that obligation, right?
Right. So, all right, we're right there. So I'm just talking about getting proved up, and so I think this is the where we're just close to having it happen. So, and I understand you can't say certain things, and that's fine. We'll go another couple of days. Actually, we're on our countdown here is 6, and I know on the 15th though we're at 3, right? So I think we're gonna see some things happening. Well, we should see some things happening if this is the GCR is going to happen, right? They've got 3 more days,
Right. Yeah.
and
Well,
then,
and I Kim and I were talking about this. We were in agreement, at least, that this it really has to happen before that, because so I really think, today's the 12th, right? So I mean, you're coming up. You have 3 more days until they go. I really, at this point, to wait for them again after they have it really shouldn't even matter at this point. But they did say that on the 15th that they'll go with Manna, right? But to me, I personally find that reasonably insulting,
I got
because
it.
this is the of the
Hello. Anyway, I got it. That there's a it's kind of insulting to say, well, enslave us, please. You've got 2 more weeks to do it, or we'll have to go with Manna. It's an odd position to be in. But sometimes things have to be the opposite for things to move forward. It's like, here's the deadline in the sand, everybody. All right, we can move forward after this. So, again, I'm being Trump's advocate on that and saying that this is a tactic to shake up the ones that were on the fence, to give them permission to leave the things behind that they were counting on and move in a different direction. So that's the way I see this, uh, and I understand the insulting part of it. It's like we're so through with being enslaved. We just don't want it anymore. We've got things to do. Get out of our way, right? So we'll we're in that position now. So and we're only got a couple more weeks to go. So I think you see that the tank has dropped up. Might be just a connection problem. I will go ahead and post the link. If anyone would like to come on and ask some questions, I went ahead and posted that. Um, I will go through and see what questions are being asked inside the chat room. I'm blowing up the screen, and I'll be able to share that as well. Oh, Tank, you're back. So.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties there. Somebody called.
Just so you know, I just posted the link for coming on. If anyone else wants to jump on, we're into 2 hours right now. So people want to jump on there. Welcome to come on, ask some questions. Maybe Tui is going to come back on and say about what's going on in Fiji. We may have someone else that.
Tui did say he was coming on. He's bringing some others on. I mean, some people from the Fiji tribes on Friday. He's coming on Friday. I know that.
Okay, well that's good. That will be that'll be a good thing to promote. Then we should put that in for the Friday show. Now, which Friday is it? Is that my Friday or your Friday?
I'm sorry, that's actually Thursday night, my time.
So your Thursday, you're sure? Not their Thursday, because their Thursday is my Thursday.
Yeah, no, they're Friday.
Their Friday, your Thursday.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. So that basically it'll be Friday night for me as well, or Friday morning. Yeah, Friday morning. So that's a be very good. See where we go. We'll see where we go. I actually am going to reach out to the 110 tribes here in the Philippines and kind of get this information to them as well, and we'll have a conversation about how this will best apply. We'll go from there. So, no one has jumped on. I was also going to kind of zoom in on the questions there and see who's been saying what in the chat room. And I know that seems to be unusual with some people, but I think it's helpful.
I think it's good if we can address those things live. Like, had that features. I'm used to kind of call and ask, but obviously that's not quite as easy in this.
Yeah, it's the chat room is a thing in itself anyway, right? So people go back and they banter and they talk, right? And it's probably an unusual thing to bring it on, but I think it can be helpful but any of them can jump on and then we'll switch back to them and just so at least we'll get since we don't have moderators, it's a good way to go about this. So. But let me just see if I can just get any questions here. So, both helping humanity with your information. Thank you. So that's from Andy. So I appreciate that. Let's see. I'm already red pilled. Okay, that's good. We need more red pills, all sizes. Our Earth is our world, apparently the place to be. Otherwise, these beings would be elsewhere. Yeah, we're the happening place.
We're the happening place. Yeah, it's true.
That's true. we've got it all, right? So on that, I guess I heard a figure something like 30 million Earth-like planets in our galaxy. Right?
Wow.
I don't know if it's true, but great. This makes sense. But we're the only place where we are. So, and we're the cool beans, and that's why everyone wants to come and enslave us.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this, and I've been dying to ask him about this, but I don't want to derail it. Right? Yeah. Again, this is like the red pill kind of starts, right? That you had these two Boeing jets that went down over the past couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 747s,
Right.
and I was thinking about this, because when you fly, you're no longer, you're counted as a soul, right? Now, human souls are very valuable. So I keep wondering, like, these planes go down because, you take down every soul in it. I keep wondering if that's some kind of weird um, thing they're part of to,
Well,
you know,
I did see that QAnon had put out their 7 out. I think it was 7 out of 10 plane crashes are basically because they're taking out people on the plane. They wipe out the whole plane just to take out one person.
yeah,
Right? And it's
yeah,
it probably has to do with technology. They just flip a switch and the plane goes down.
of course. I mean, if our Navy, the U.S. Navy has microchips that allow the Chinese to track us, our movements, which seems like somebody would have caught right in the planning stage. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have China make our microchips that that we use in our military, right? Because they could probably use them against us. Seems like if that can happen, I feel like it's not a stretch to
And that's exactly what's been going on, right? And that's why
exactly. Yep.
you know they wanted to refit Trump's Air Force One, right, with all these new specs and all this, and Trump declined, right, because all this new tech would have been, a security. So plane's been working just fine. No need to change it, and
Right.
and so he declined. So I think that's a very smart move on his part.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Let's see. I don't. I'm just looking more for like if there's any particular questions or things that stand out. Cover. Thank Mike Venezuela is saying, "Who chopped off the head of Marduk?" Do you want to cover that, or is it too big of a red pill?
You know, I mean I've talked about it before. It's you know, but I gotta be honest. It's hard to wrap your mind around, and um, I don't think so, Dan. I mean, you tell
Okay.
me. If you want me to later, I will. But
We'll
and
leave
now Kim is
we'll leave it for a future show after everything has been moved forward, and then it'll be
now
easy.
now
Easy
Kim
to,
has told me if Kim has told me it, if she shared it with me, I'm allowed to talk about it. Just FYI, right? That's like an agreement, And she's told me like, if I've told you, you can share it, right? Because there's plenty that I don't know, but what I know is incredible.
Yeah.
So
Let's say
that
first,
much.
I'll talk about what's on Mars, right? Because I can go over and zoom in on a photograph of taken where you see, well, they forgot to wipe this off, right? You can see satellite dishes and domes and connections. So there you can see the pictures. It's there.
It's yeah. There was footage out a while ago of some things moving on the surface of Mars that were real actually, and they tried to portray them as just frauds that were made. I've talked to Captain Kramer. I don't know if you ever. Captain Kramer is the um, he's the gentleman who talks about being in the wars on Mars. Okay, and he's part of a very real group that's still active on the planet today, which is Eisenhower. He set up the what is it called? It's the United States Marine Corps Special Service, or yeah, I think a Special Service, and that is like the secret space program of the Marines. And basically, he was part of that, and the details he has, the knowledge he has, the things that he's experienced is incredible. And what he talks about, even when I mean, he's constantly talking about how he understands and has been given the technology for the components of the medbed, but he hasn't put it into production yet. We were trying to fund him. He wants to buy these old he has clearance to buy certain levels of military bases, right? Down in different areas that have been closed for various reasons. A lot of them are just toxic, but he has the clearance to be able to go in, clean them up, and rebuild them, so he can do the research, because there's still research. I mean, so anybody on the medbed train, Jared Rand does not have the technology for the medbeds. Captain Kramer does, but even he has to research it, because there's an element that it does exist here on the Earth, but it's not recorded on the periodic table, that they have to literally, ascertain and modify.
A rare earth mineral.
Yes, rare earth mineral, right?
So,
So
we have someone asking a question here. How can we help Tank and Kim? That's from Carol Mosley.
how can you help Tank and Kim? Well, you know what? I like the example that Denmark has set. If we could get people to embrace that this is an energetic and cyber war, okay? And right now, the collective energy that we're creating is literally changing the entire vibration of the planet. And we want to align ourselves with the expectation, the knowledge, the truth, the reality of receiving and knowing that we're there, right? Now, I think this is very important. If they're saying watch and wait, now I know that's something Q says, but that's also what they've been saying for years with the GCR. Okay. But watch and wait, right, is exactly how they've intoxicated us, right? Because they program us through just repeated visual images, toxic media, you know, frequencies and things in our food that are active. So everything's working in harmony in their world, right? They put toxins in the air, and these nanites. The nanites are then activated by different words and frequencies that come through, right? And they have effects on our body. So to help, it's tell everybody talk to everyone, and be brave enough to say, like, hey, let me challenge the mainstream of what's happening right now, and let's talk about things that matter, right? So that has been the focus. So what I have been saying nonstop for a month now, humanity has to come together if we're going to survive, right? So if we're going to survive, you got to think, what do we need, right? So I started with some things that we need, right? So I've been putting this out everywhere because I think it's easy to remember, right? We all know we want food that's healthy, right? That's not modified to hurt us. We all know we want water that isn't poisoned, right? That's fresh, that's drinkable, that fuels us, right? We all know we don't want poisons in our air, right? One of the elements, I think it's barium, is like 10,000 times more deadly to the human body than lead, and they're putting it in the air. Right? And the claim is, because for the longest time they claim they acted like the chemtrails weren't real, right? Oh, we're not doing chemtrails. Then now they've modified that, and now it's bio-environmental engineering, right? And they're saying we're trying to block the heat of the sun, right? So they're basically admitting that what they're doing is they're putting up a layer that prevents us from connecting to the sun. And it really, in reality, people could survive on virtually almost no food, just if they had a good connection from the sun and clean air. I mean,
well, isn't this also where when you go to a planet and you want to transform it, right, into a different type of environment, you terraform. But in this case, since terra is natural for us, maybe it's another alien form of terraform that they're doing here. Maybe they need barium. And they're trying to.
No, that's true. That's actually that's very accurate. The oxygen for us, what we should have to thrive is about 30% more, and they've reduced that in the oxygen because whoever these different beings were, that's what they needed. So they were creating their ideal environment. And the way it goes is they wanted to create a dark planet, right? That was basically self-consuming negativity and darkness and whatever comes along with that, I guess, right? And where you reward kind of the way things are now, right? Like we reward deviant behavior as long as it makes you rich, and as long as you're rich, we think that you're successful, right? So we have to look at the key components, right? So I say food, water, air, and each other. You can't survive without other people. We need each other. And the way that they're causing division, right, is they've made it just normal for us to just be mean spirited and hurtful and not really consider the strength of our words and how we are creators, and we're bringing things into reality in what we talk about and spend our energy on. So as much as people think they're doing so much good by going on Twitter and just trashing whoever, the opposition, and as much as we think we're doing good, if you don't take that energy and transmute it into what you want instead, right? Then really all you're doing is just creating more of that, more conflict, more of that. And it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much. It takes just a small mass of individuals that are consciously awakening and activating and feeding, and you see it. And look, and it doesn't, there's so many things that are happening every time you talk, every time you interact with people. Just in our call, just in us connecting, New York to the Philippines, no matter how many people see this, we'll take such credit about is that the energy we're creating in the universe is reflecting, and you're seeing it, and it contributes, and it helps. It makes everything lighter and lift easier and move faster. And eventually, when you get to the, and I mean, eventually, I mean, this stuff's been going on, you know, and that's really where people can help is, what, get like Dan and I have been talking about this, and you know what, there's some details we have to iron out, but we're in agreement. Like that's why we're here doing this every day. Like we are in agreement that we need to change the world, right? And like this is definitely one of the ways that's going to help is we can get money to people for projects, right? That it's about the people. So, and it's about people who are willing to do versus, waiting for something to change from outside of them. All the changes that are going to happen from the inside out. So the changes have to be generated from us. So if we're going to have it, if things are going to be different, first change your mentality about what you can do, and don't look at, okay, what can I do tomorrow? And you want to completely change your life. I joke about this all the time, but with people who try to change their lifestyle for health reasons, right? They make up their mind, they make a New Year's resolution, like, okay, I'm gonna run every day, I'm gonna eat nothing but vegetables, I'm gonna work out like I'm gonna climb the mountain. That's reasonable. It's in your world, right? I'm gonna do this every day. So what I own a wellness company, but we tell people change one thing, just change one thing, but do it every day. Do something different that makes you better, because if you are better, we're all better for it, right? All of us get better as each individual takes responsibility for who they are. Now, what we have been trained to do is blame the establishment, blame the man, blame the Republicans, blame the president, blame the Democrats, you know, blame the Muslims, blame the Christians. Blaming, all it does is just put this, it takes away our power, right? What we want to do is take responsibility for all of it. Take responsibility for everything that's happening, internalize it like you are the one in control, and this world is a product of you. And when you take that responsibility, the whole world will change, because you have the power to generate from you out that you can influence your whole environment. You can influence timelines. You can influence, the way the cells regenerate in your body. You can change the way you feel, your health. You can cure diseases. You can do, I mean, that's just in you. Now, if you are healthier and you are stronger, suddenly in this very dark place, there's a light that's shining. And when there's a light shining in a dark place, you know what that does? Suddenly there's all these other people that are afraid to shine. Now they want to shine. And it just becomes contagious. And the way to do that, we just have to we have to just let go of any kind of fear, face it, let it go, and then figure out what do we do next. Now, where I say start, right? We talk about the Guardian of Camelot, and really, this is in line with everything. You know, we can work out some of these details later, but I set this up because I know we're waiting, but now we can take action. So, you know, get involved with Guardian of Camelot. I mean, it's the best deal on the internet. I mean, it's we're giving these things away. This is basically a free service we're providing, you know, to get people set up, right? And the reason why is when we're done, we want to have a trusted membership, and I mean literally. I Whatever it takes, what we've set up is I've taken their things, right, and I've reversed them. So we have the Guardian of Camelot is a tax exempt association. It's a business association. It's just like a fraternity or a membership, or really just like a secret society. But here's the difference. There's no secrets. I'm telling you exactly what we're doing. I'm putting it all out there. The only thing that's different is we set up an entire social network that is for project owners, for vendors, and for people who want to work with them. And in this project network, they can work together and know that they can trust the people in that network. This way, as we grow, right? So you start out here and you have this core of people, and then we work, and then everybody else wants to be involved because we're going to be bringing in funding, right, through Create Change and other ways. So we're going to guarantee these projects, you know, the projects that come in, we're giving these people a chance. Like, your idea doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be real. You have to really want to do it, right? But if you really want to do it and you don't know how, this is a perfect place. We'll bring you into the Guardian of Camelot. We set you up in the Creators Network. You know, you can apply for your project there. And then what we do is we have professional project managers. We have administrators, and we just have people that are just professionals in general in all fields. And what they're going to do, everybody's going to work so the other person is successful, right? No one's in there trying to box each other out. Now, that's what Denmark did. Now, how powerful is this? Now, you know, I love this about Denmark, those videos, because, you know, when I put things out, I have a certain edge and a personality of things, right? But with them, I mean, they're just good, wholesome farmers. I mean, literally. So we matched the music to go with that and made it very low key for people. But look, it's a bunch of farmers. They're not looking at it like they're in competition. What they're looking at is, hey, we're here to, we want to do this, and we want to find a way, and we want to, you know, we want to make sure that we're preserving this, you know, in farming in a way that's organic and healthy and natural and in line with the best interest of people and the planet. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. Now, and they're all working together, and all of them are pulled together in the same network, and they're going to be working with the organic farmers from Ghana, and eventually they'll bring in more, and they're going to share their methods. So, the head of that project, Susan Hobman, she's designed these whole systems and methods of organic farming. And you know what? She's not talking about, well, these are my systems, I need to be paid for them, because she's not like that, right? She's the people. So she's like, look, I have these great methods, I want to share them, right? Those people, what she's done, and I'll tell you what, you know how much it cost her to do that for us? Nothing. It cost her nothing, right? And I'm trying to get people to realize your power, it doesn't require funding. Your power is your voice right now. So you've got to use what you have. Now, right now we have a voice. Now, our voice is small because they're overpowering us with all this stuff. But you know how quick we can shift that? We can completely shift that wave. But it requires people to stop being afraid, stop waiting, you know, and start acting. So put together your own video and send it. I'll give my email right here. My email is Stephen Rowe, STEFFENROWE at createchange.today. KRE, the number 8, the word change .today. All right. Everybody has my full name, completely transparent. That's my email. Send me videos of what you want to do, and we'll take those videos, we'll bring them to life. And you know what? Already this effort of these farmers in Denmark has gone from Denmark to the United States to the Philippines. Yeah. Now imagine, repeat that. We'll keep repeating that. After a while, you can't ignore it because the people become too strong. Because the one thing we have on them is numbers. We're bigger, right? We are, in reality, we're more powerful too. That's my pitch on that.
Well, now I know why your last name is Rowe. You get to row them up.
Wow, I know. I tell my daughter that that we're descendants from a tribe of lions. So I say, wow.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we had a couple questions. One is so they can't get on Google Hangouts to ask. I don't know why, but they're saying no. You were talking about the Georgia Guidestones. They want a little bit more on the Georgia Guidestones, and
Yeah.
I think it's just their system is about informing us what they're going to do to us, and this is just written in stone. How much more can they make it? They're going to kill off 2/3 of the planet.
Well, if you look at the Georgia Guidestones, now they are masters of linguistics, right? To the letter of the law. So in the Georgia Guidestones, if you read through it, most people would be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound so bad." You know, it because most things on it are very positive. It's I can't remember them off the top of my head, but what where people miss it is when it says maintain the population of 500 million people, right? Well, when you say that then they say that's a reasonable amount to maintain the optimal life on the planet is what the Georgia Guidestones say, right? Now that's the piece that people haven't registered. Well, that would mean that 90% of the planet has to die, right? So that's the part that people miss. Now, the other part that people miss is that in the Georgia Guidestones, there was an actual methodology that was in this like secret compartment there that they removed that mapped out exactly how to do that using the exact methods they're using now. Toxins in the water, toxins in the food, creating scares with viruses, making curable diseases incurable, exhausting the economic system. It's an entire plan, and that's that's the thing that when you take something like that and you put it in a public place and it's written in stone, it's a principle, right? They're showing you. We wrote it in stone, and then it's kind of like when people do things like, I want you to sign this first, right? And you sign something so that later you can't come back to sue them because you signed it right here. It says, we can do this to you. It happens to authors all the time. Authors will sign something, they go to sign the book deal, and on the book deal, it'll say, you agree that we can completely change your name, change what you wrote. We can do whatever we want. And because an author wants to publish the book so bad, and they need the power of the promotion behind it, they'll sign. But then they signed away the rights. Now humanity has done the same thing. It's not speculation. This is the reality. We have repeatedly been found ourselves in these desperate situations that they've created, right? They've created a desperate situation. So you can go back through history and see when was it a desperate situation? I guarantee you that's when it was time for the renewal of a contract. And then they would basically trick humanity like, hey, and our silence is consent. Now, when you are, scared to death that you got to protect your child because there's war, or you got to figure out how you're going to escape some horrible disease, or you got to pay your bills, and you're going to lose your job, and all these things like that. You're not as concerned about the big picture and how you're a part of it. But all of us, our actions, our behavior, our conduct, these are all methods we use to respond. We're making a statement, we're making an agreement with the universe, with whoever, that this is what I will accept as behavior that's okay. That's why all these humanitarian projects have never been funded, because everyone will jump through hoops. They'll jump through all types of hoops to get funding. People will wait for years. They'll get their first phase of funding and nothing else. Just by doing that and pandering to people that are, like that we think are in control, essentially we say, look, I'll be your slave. I'll do whatever you want, right? That's the statement we're making to the universe. And to be honest, it's not fair though, because they've poisoned us, lied to us, controlled, mind controlled us. They diminished our lifespan and held back knowledge. They changed our history. Everything about it is set up against us, which is the argument, by the way. I mean, Kim has made that argument for all of us. Thank God somebody did. But
It's good that we have an advocate.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
About time. Well, okay, so no one was able to come on. I don't know what the question was, but they basically said that they were not able to jump on here. So I post the link one more time. I don't know if that has any issue to it, but
one of my network members, as a public service announcement, hit me up during the call since we've been talking to let me know that Carrie, which called her from, what is it, right? That she's cheated many people out of their money, right? And she's been exposed as a fraud. Now I don't know that to be true. I'm just telling you what she told me. And the only reason why I mentioned it is because I was kind of tongue in cheek saying, go find out what she's about. And I will say this too. You should. Anybody, you know what? Anybody who's got a problem with what we're saying or loves what we're saying, go find out what's being said other places. Find out who's proving it. Find out who's going to back it up. Find out anybody the same kind of experience or better experience. You know what? And if they have the truth, we'll go that way. I mean, Dan and I talked about this today. He last time, because after these calls, we'll be on the call for another hour trying to figure out how to make things work, right? And this is what he said, and I think it's noteworthy. It speaks to his character. He said, "Look, let's figure out how to do it. I'm willing to work to get it done. However we got to do it, but we got to change the world, right?" And this speaks to his character. He said, "Look, I'm willing to work to get it done. However we got to do it, but we got to change the world."
Cindy,
right?
You're going to have to mute
the
video. Put it on top.
Good. Spiked her out.
She's muted. Okay. I don't know what Cindy. If it's,
is that Cindy? That's the one.
I don't know. I don't know which Cindy it is.
Oh,
it says Cindy.
Too bad. Yeah. But and by the way, I'm not trying to derail her. I'm just telling you. People warn me about this. What I'm saying is, go check her out and see. Like, you decide for yourself if that's real. And I think it's important. People have to make their own minds up. And we can't just stop at the first Google search we hit and make a decision. We gotta ask ourselves, well, if we know the bad guys are controlling things, why do we use those same things as our source to reference our ignorance?
Yeah, it's all the matrix, right? The matrix is going to try and shift you back onto program. You stay on the program. So whatever way that is. So just doing some sort of research is gonna help, but it doesn't always. Sometimes
it doesn't always. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go with what your gut tells you, what your heart tells you, and then what your mind tells you. You kind of like weigh everything and go that direction. I mean, it's quite a leap for me to come out and say the GCR is a big lie. The whole purpose of this video. Right? Because even though I had suspicions along the way that, maybe this is all done by the cabal. But everyone that I'm dealing with is not of the cabal. So, and everyone they're dealing with is not of the cabal. And if they knew that the cabal was behind it, I know that they wouldn't want to be involved. Right. But something was set up in a way that they were in the shadows, which is where they like to be. And so shining the light on what the situation is, I needed to get some information when things start lining up. And, I can only do my best to and I have to rely on the people that are confirming things for me, as long, and I have to go with it. I have to feel it and say, okay, well, this makes sense. Even though it is as far out as it may be with the biggest red pill over that there's one woman that now has taken over the trust, and the Rothschilds lost control of it. And it used to be called the Dragon Family Trust, and now it's Manna World Holding Trust. It's a big red pill. If you need to take time to absorb it, that's fine. But at least now be aware that someone who was and Tank and myself were both in it from different angles. And connected in with people that are high up and doing things and really part of it. Why wouldn't we believe it? But to not believe it as what we thought it was, and now know that there was some sinister plot, with the evil maniacal laugh in the background playing, you know, Dr. Evil, you know,
Right.
up there making their plans.
Yeah. If only it was that easy to identify. You know.
Yeah. So, but it's something that, to take this step and move forward. We need to move forward, right? Not keep on the tomorrow game and letting things happen, and just so getting moving on it is all a momentum, right? People will join. You know, it took me, a literal, I would be a year of me listening to Thomas, and then I started really diving in and really trying to check things in October, right? And still, and I was still checking on things a month ago, right?
Yeah.
To verify, even the.
I
So
mean, you coming around. I mean, your experience is unique. There's not even many people out there speaking with much experience and proof that you have the other way, right? Of all these things, because, and this is the thing I think that it is real, right? That's the thing that's kind of, it's hard to wrap people's minds around. No, the GCR is real. It is a real, it's a real occurrence. It's a real event that was planned. It's just not the jubilee and the abundance that we thought it was, and and it's amazing that you don't have economists who are involved. I one of the guys that we're funding who he's a former economics professor at Harvard, and he was also a professor at Stanford. He's had over 55 books published. He's been interviewed by all types of people, met all types of presidents. He's one of the foremost thought, right? And the guy is a genius in every way. But he didn't know about any of this. It never even, and if you think about it from a global currency reset perspective, somebody should have been like, wait, there's no way this works. There's no way, and I mean, just from a natural supply and demand, there's no way to pull it off, So, and I do think and I think that the hard part is all the countries, everybody bought in. So the hardest part is there's something above it. There's something above. There's always something above it. And that's the only thing that makes sense. And then the next hard part is that, you know, even a lot of the things that we take comfort in, like, God's got a plan, and all the excuses we use not to do something. All of them are excuses we use. People say these things all the time. Like, well, they can't override God. Well, God's on my side. I'll keep the faith. And what they mean when they say those things is don't do anything. Just believe. But you know what? I love this example of the centurion, right? The centurion shows up to the Messiah. He's a man over 100 soldiers, got a house. He's a Roman, right? So who knows what goes on there? Comes to the Messiah and says, Sire, I know you're a man of God. My servant is sick. The Messiah says, let's go. We'll go to your house right now and I'll heal him. And the centurion goes, Sire, I'm not worthy of you to come to my house. Because, Romans were into some kinky stuff, right? So some bad stuff was going on at that house. He was, and when faced with someone, he was embarrassed. And he said to him, I know if you just say the word, it'll be done. Now that's what he said. You just say the word. So the Messiah said, in all of Israel, I have not seen anyone with so much faith. Now think about it. We talk about faith. We're usually just talking about praying and doing nothing. This man's faith, he traveled from his home. He showed up here. He sought this man to talk. He begged him to basically, told him, he basically went against everything that he was. He was a Roman soldier coming to a Jewish carpenter and saying, please heal my servant. So he basically gave up his whole identity. He gave up everything about himself and said, and just kind of submitted himself. I know it's you. I know you can do this, right? And the Messiah said, I haven't seen this much faith even from the Jews who'd been raised with it and told he was coming. And he says, go forth, your servant is healed. That's all he said. That's how easy it was. So the man, this is where the whole idea of walking in faith, the man turned around and he said he walked. knowing his servant was healed. He walked home. That is walking in faith. He didn't be like, well, you know what? I'm going to hang. Maybe, they'll bring him to me. He just turned and walked. And as he walked, every step of that walk, he walked with full expectation. When he got back to his home, his other servants came running out of the house. Whatever his name is healed, man. He's better. And he was like, in what hour? In that moment, he was healed. Now, if we looked at our walk that way, how many of us are walking in faith like that? I compare it to walking on an invisible bridge. You walking on an invisible bridge, you just got to take it steps, right? But you got to know it's there.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and I always think about this, like you've got to step and move and know. You got to know.
I'm going to throw some dirt out there and see if there's like an invisible bridge, so I can have faith to walk on it.
Yeah, which is not the same,
It's not the same,
man. You got to move.
Cheating. Yeah.
It's cheating, right? It's not faith. But and that's the thing. The Bible says that the faith is the evidence of things hoped for, or it's the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. Now, if I were to take that and apply it to tangible things that you feel every day, say, well, love is a substance. How do you know? How do you know God is real, or energy real, or even that you're real? Because of love. You know what? And you know what? And it can go the other way too. It can be because of pain. It can be because of hate. But if you make love the core of your substance and your faith, right, then the evidence will come too. And even though you might not see love, when you start to just generate it from the inside out, you know what? You just naturally draw it to you. It happens all the time. So, I'm a believer.
Well, I think on that note, we're approaching our 3-hour mark. It's a good place to leave.
How did we go 3 hours?
On your preaching, right? You got.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Get up on that soapbox and go for it. Yeah.
Hey, trying to change the world, man. You gotta do what you know.
So that's what we're preaching. So let's keep it going. So tomorrow we'll be at T-5. This is T-6 on our countdown, and we'll see if we have any other news coming in from things. So hopefully there's some news. If not, we'll just keep going. See if we get some more information out there.
I fully expect we will have a blockbuster night. Matter of fact, by my morning, I might have to put out an announcement to make sure people know to come on. We'll see. But okay. I have high hopes.
Well, at least for our Friday morning, Thursday night. So we will have the people from Fiji on. Some of the elders. So that will be good. So we'll.
Yeah.
All right.
The bandwidth. All right. Later, Dan.
Okay.